Hello all. Going to share my musings on Picard Season 3, Episode 2, Disengage. Now unfortunately, once we get to Episode 2, it's very difficult to do any kind of review without spoilers. So what I'm going to do is do a brief overview of my feelings on the episode and then get into spoilers at a certain point, and I'll warn everybody when I get there. My overall feeling is that this is a step up from the first episode. Once again, it still has a lot of the first two seasons' tone still hanging in there with the very dark ships. It feels far more like a TNG movie. You know, the series, whilst there were the Wham Bam episodes, the thing I loved about it was the philosophy and the way they addressed issues through analogy. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the movies though. Picard started to feel a little bit more like his old self. He had more moments of command in the personality sense. He had moments of being smarter, resourceful, astute and forthright. There was an interesting emotional scene in there and a couple of revelations, one of which I imagine most people saw coming. It's good to see the Federation and a crew above a starship adhering to a military code, hierarchies and a chain of command, as I said in my last video, unlike certain other modern Trek. So overall, it was an okay episode again, one more step in the right direction from the previous episode. And if it continues on this trajectory, hopefully we'll get a great series. It's still going to be weighed down by what came before, but hopefully it rises above it enough. So going to go on to spoilers. I'll try and keep most of it very brief, as I say. Quick recap of the first episode, because I didn't really go into the detail on that one. There's not a lot of detail to go into, and there's not a lot of detail in this one. But in the first episode, Beverly's under attack, calls Picard for help. Picard and Riker then kind of semi-commandeer a ship. They want to go and find Beverly. The ship captain is resistant. 7 of 9, who's the first officer, helps them go to the edge of Federation space. They take a shuttle, find Beverly's ship, wherein they find Jack Crusher, who's Beverly's son, and Beverly in a cryotube, I suppose, something that's sustaining her life. And right at the last minute, a large ship appears. Kind of reminded me of the ship from Star Trek Nemesis. It didn't look the same, but it had that predatory feeling. This episode opened with a little bit of a flashback to Jack's life. He's a bit of a wheeler-dealer, dodgy person, and it establishes that he kind of does a lot of bad for the right reasons, or certainly that's his argument. Picard, Jack and Riker decide to take Beverly to a shuttle. Shuttle's destroyed. Picard sets up transport inhibitors as they try to take Jack, and obviously they now realise that whoever these people are, they're after Jack. Meanwhile on the Titan, 7 of 9 is trying to convince Captain Shaw to go and help them. He was the one being a dick to Picard and Riker in the last episode. He's not a bad guy, he's just very much by the book. Some of the bad guys being onto Beverly's ship. This is a silly little bit, because Riker throws a grenade and they die. And then there's a comment about, oh, they won't try that again because it's already cost them too many people. It's like, well, no, it's a couple of people. It felt like that bit should have continued a bit longer. Maybe it was cut for the episode length, but that really felt like it should have been longer. You know, if you're going to say, oh, we cost them too much in lives, you've got to show for more lives being lost. So the predatory ship gets them in a tractor beam, and 7 of 9 was successful as the Titan breaks through the beam and beams them on board. At which point the enemy is revealed as a person called Vadic. Vadic says she's a bounty hunter. She tells them to scan the ship and it is armed to the teeth. They have no chance of fighting it and no chance of beating it. She gives them an hour to hand over Jack. All that happened quite quickly in the episode and had a level of excitement to it. And much of the rest is focused on the backwards and forwards between Jack, Picard, Riker, Shaw and 7 of 9. You know, what do you do when you've got a situation where you've got someone on board who you discover as a criminal and someone's threatening you with violence if you don't hand them over? I suppose this is kind of philosophical. So what is your choice? Do you give up this person to a fate which you know is going to be pretty dire? Do you risk the 500 people on your ship for that person? Picard and Riker are very much in favour of you protect the individual. Shaw is very much in the favour of, these are my crew, this is my ship. I'm not risking it for one person who's a criminal. Riker wakes Beverly, and Beverly's been notably absent in the last 2 episodes. She was kind of at the very beginning, a little face through a screen, and then literally for 30 seconds, a minute at the end, when she doesn't even speak to Picard to communicate to him that Jack is his son. Something pretty much most of us figure out from the end of the last episode. I don't know why, I get the sense that there's a reason why she's not in the show much beyond the show's story. Within the story itself, Jack actually tries to give himself up. He escapes from the brig and tries to commandeer a transporter to go to the ship. Shaw wants to let him, Picard says no, and then he tells Shaw that Jack is his son. And for some reason, that suddenly makes a difference to Shaw. I don't know why, because the position hasn't changed, it's just the relationship between Picard and the person has changed. You know, it's still a person who, if you protect, you risk 500 other members of your crew. But then, to quote an old Star Trek film, sometimes the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. They fire a volley at Vadic's ship, which is called Strike, and they leg it into the nebula, followed by Vadic laughing as they go. The secondary story, which is obviously heavily linked, there's a massive exposition dump again from Raffi. It's delivered well, but it's just a big old exposition dump to explain what's going to happen next with her story. It's quite clunky. She's still trying to find out who has the weapon that was stolen from the Daystrom Institute, despite her handler telling her to stop. She sees her ex-husband, because he has connections, and he can connect her to a person of interest. And this is quite a nice little scene between the two of them. He thought she came to see him so that she could reconnect with their son, and he presents the moral dilemma to her. I can connect you with your son, or I can connect you with this person of interest. You don't get both. So that's quite a moment of sacrifice for Raffi, because she wants to reconnect with her son. She wants to be back in his life with her grandchild. But the person who has the weapon can kill untold number of people using it. And so her duty, her moral imperative, is to find the weapon and stop it. So the meeting is set up. Doesn't go well because the person sniffs that she is Starfleet, makes her take a drug to prove who she is about to kill her. When someone intercedes, and you know from what you're seeing, it's a bit blurry because you're seeing it through her eyes, but you know who it is. And there's a nice little fight scene here with someone with a large bladed weapon, so that will give you a hint. And Worf picks her up, because it turns out Worf was her handler. So great to see him back. Worf was one of my favourite characters from The Next Generation. His stories were always great. And I always felt it curious that a Klingon raised on Earth away from his people had a more noble spirit and was more Klingon than the Klingons on their homeworld. As I say, showing some more promise. Anyway, I'll leave that one there. Be interested to know if any of you are enjoying the show, what your feelings are, if you've got any theories, obviously careful of spoilers. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much for listening, and peace out.